Good evening, everyone. Hi, how are you? Hello. Welcome to my home. No, this is the Hollywood Heritage Museum, also known as the Lasky DeMille Barn. And I'm Brian Cooper, your friendly neighborhood publicity chairman. Hopefully you got here because you got an email or a text message from me, or you saw it on Instagram or Twitter, or I came to your house and knocked on your door, or anyway, I don't know how you got here, but thank you for coming. We're thrilled to have you. Do we have any members here tonight? Yes, the members, people. We revere our members, and if you're not a member, please go home now. No, if you're not a member, consider joining Hollywood Heritage. It's a great investment. For $40, you can get an individual membership, and it not only gets you a discount on tickets for our special evenings and afternoons at the barn, 10% off in our gift shop. We have a lot of perks. So if you want to become a part of the team here, we'd love to have you. We're also a preservation organization. Some of you may or may not know that our other mission is to help preserve classic architecture here in Hollywood, and help people get them HCM'd, which is make them into a historic cultural monument so that they don't get torn down, or hopefully they don't get torn down. So that's part of the mission of Hollywood Heritage, just some of the things that we do here. And when this isn't a theater, it's a regular museum space. So if you haven't been back, I know a lot of you were seeing our programs online for a long time, but now that we're back in person and we've sort of spiffed up the place, you should come back and check out the museum. And the good news is that the Overboard exhibit is going to be here all month long, so you can tell your friends to come on down. Thanks so much. Thanks. A little bit more. Okay, that's enough. Now, here's just some of the things that we have coming up. For those of you who are a fan of classic cartoons, do we have any classic cartoon fans here? Right there, I saw your shirt coming in, young man. Very, very sharp. Well, on Sunday, we're going to be doing a special program with our friends at the Hollywood Legion Theater, which is sort of catty corner from here. And we're very excited. It's called The Greatest Cartoons Ever. And it's a new partnership between Hollywood Heritage, the Alex Film Society, the Hollywood Legion, and we're going to be presenting a show that was supposed to happen at Christmas that didn't happen, and it's a lineup of classic animation from Hollywood's golden age. And the good news is you can come to the museum here at noon, you can park here for free, and then you can take a tour, and then walk across the street and enjoy the show. So if you want to get tickets for that, you can go to their website, which is thehollywoodlegiontheater.com. So that's coming up Sunday, June 5th. The barn will open at 11 a.m., and the program will start at 2. And just some of the other things that we have, we're going to be having a booth at the Hollywood Pride Village next weekend, and our Preservation Resource Center will be open, so you can see the Hollywood miniatures, vintage scale model of Hollywood in the late 1930s. And then over the summer, while the Hollywood Bowl is in session, we do what's called Silence Under the Stars. And that's out at the Paramount Ranch in Agoura. And on July 17th, there's going to be a screening of Speedy. That's correct, Randy? Speedy, Harold Lloyd? Yes, I'm getting the thumbs up. With live musical accompaniment. You can go there, you can picnic. I'm assuming there'll be tours. Yes, okay. And the proceeds go to the Santa Monica Mountains Fund. How am I doing? Okay. And that's to help rebuild the western town that was destroyed by fire a few years ago. And then in September, we'll be hosting the Cinecon Classic Film Festival, and that's over Labor Day weekend, and that's a variety of classic film from the silent era all the way up through the 60s with special guests, and that's going to be at the Legion Theater as well across the street. So before we get started, I just want to thank, there's a lot of people that went into making this evening happen. We have a huge committee, a board, but some of the people that really jumped in to help: Richard Atkins, Beth Whirling, Angie Schneider, who's right behind me, Maggie, who you met in the shop, Rod, and of course the Hollywood Foreign Press Association for underwriting this. So let's thank all of them. And so it's going to go like this tonight. We're going to have our curator come up in just a moment. I'm going to introduce. And we'll be showing a video, and then we'll have a Q&A, and then we'll have a potty break for you kids who need to run and take care of some business. And then we'll come back and we'll watch the movie. How does that sound? Okay, great. So it's my pleasure to bring up to the podium Heath Daniels. And Heath is a good friend of mine, and he's a very talented young man. He curated that fabulous Overboard display in the front room. And I'm so proud of him. And he came to us a few years ago, pre-pandemic, with this idea of honoring Wayne Finkelman. And I'm so glad that we finally came to fruition, that we finally got here, and we're honoring this incredible costume designer. So please welcome your host for tonight, Heath Daniels.
Thank you, Brian. You're much smoother than I am at this, so I probably will be reading a little bit. Thank you, everyone, for being here so much. Just first question, how many people in the audience knew or worked with Wayne Finkelman? Wonderful. Thank you for being here. And I know that I've spoken with most of you over time, but I hope to do more of that and don't leave without talking to me. I must admit, I've struggled a bit with how to introduce Wayne Finkelman. For some of you in the room tonight, you knew him personally and loved him as a friend and as a colleague. To most others in the audience, I feel like this is probably your first introduction to him. My first introduction to Wayne happened at Western Costume when I was shown some of his research materials and amazing illustrations for a not very good film from the 80s called Partners, but the research was fabulous. And my friend Amber Morris, who is in the audience, was the one that first introduced me to Wayne, and I can't thank you enough for her. Sorry. All of your help. It was at that moment when Amber showed me that I knew that I had to do an exhibit. I didn't quite know what exactly it was going to be, but I wanted to know more about Wayne Finkelman. The problem was there wasn't that much information out there about Wayne Finkelman. I'm sure some of you have tried Googling his name, and no doubt you've found very little on the internet. Wayne's career kind of exists in that space between the Hollywood studio system, when everyone knew iconic costume designers like Edith Head, and this place called the internet. His career really is pre-internet in many ways. Thankfully, costume designers are finally getting respect and entire fan sites dedicated to them. But Wayne's costume career primarily occurred during the 1980s and early 90s. And costume designers didn't get that much publicity back then, particularly for a designer who was doing romantic comedies like Overboard. The lack of information about Wayne was frustrating, but also provided an opportunity to share his story for the first time. We just had to track down that information. And I've spent a few years tracking down that information and tracking down those who knew him and loved him and worked with him, and I continue to do that. I hope this exhibit provides an introduction for many of you to Wayne Finkelman and his incredible artistry. There's so much more. Speaking of Goldie, Wayne first worked with Goldie on the political comedy Protocol. Costume designer turned producer Anthea Silbert was struck by Wayne's portfolio and hired him for that film. Goldie and Wayne did 3 more films together: Wildcats, Bird on a Wire, and Overboard. I think Overboard really represents the most delicious aspects and excess of the 1980s. And my goal, eventually, as Brian talked about, is for a larger exhibition which really explores Wayne's life and his entire career as a costume designer. Tonight's event came about because of Wayne's work with Goldie and the 4 films that they shared together. And I think Overboard really represents some of his most iconic work. The video you're about to see is a teaser for a larger exhibition that I hope will happen in the future. And this particular video kind of really represents Goldie and Wayne's work together. We're kind of extracting that out of his whole career and really focused on that. And I just want to give a shout out to Eduardo Castro and Jim Tyson, who are both here. They're both in the video. And we'll be speaking with them. And some other people, Albert Walski is here. Thank you, Albert, for everything. I just want to say a quick thank you before this to everyone at the Hollywood Heritage Museum for helping make this happen. Brian, for being a good friend and supporter. Maggie, back there in the back, for just kicking ass all the time here at the Hollywood Heritage. Rod, all these new friends. Beth and Richard at the beginning for meeting with me years ago to even contemplate doing something like this. And everyone here that's been so helpful, and so all the docents, everyone. Western Costume Company, who generously said yes right out of the gate when I pitched this. I would not have an exhibit. We would not have this here tonight if Western Costume had not said, yes, go do it. And Amber Morris, as I said before, for having my back all the time. Michael Saul, who, if you see every piece of thing that's on the wall out there, helped create that. The graphic designer, the film, he co-directed with me on this. He's had my back since the beginning, and thank you, Michael. He's now standing behind a movie camera tonight doing this. My friend Dudley Bean, who helped me build the Overboard ship out there when I went to him and said, I have this idea for a diorama, kind of like ship thing. And he's like, yes, I can do that. So thank you, Dudley. And that's where I get a little emotional, sorry. There's a wonderful woman costume designer named May Routh. Who was so supportive of this from the very beginning and connected me with a lot of people, including Anthea. Not Anthea, I'm sorry. I apologize, names are going out. But May Routh was a wonderful, wonderful woman costume designer who said, Heath, you need to do this. I will help you in any way I can. I just found out this morning that she passed away this morning. But I know that she would be so happy that you're all here and this is happening. And I'm sorry I'm so emotional. But I thank you, May Routh. So please enjoy that. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for indulging my whatever before, too. I have two guests tonight that I'm going to introduce that are going to join me. The first being Eduardo Castro. Eduardo Castro is Please, Eduardo, please come up. Yeah, I would love to be closer. It seems unnecessarily far apart.
Only as far as the mic.
Yes, exactly. Eduardo Castro and Jim Tyson. I'll briefly do an introduction for both of you, but if anything is wrong, I will trust that you will correct me. Eduardo Castro is a 7-time Emmy-nominated costume designer. Lost all of them, apparently. Lost all of them for shows like Once Upon a Time and Ugly Betty. But he is a Costume Design Guild Award winner, so there's a consolation there. 5 times. Okay. He had a long history of professional experience working with Wayne Finkelman, first on Protocol. Eduardo and Wayne eventually shared a costume design credit in the Goldie Hawn action comedy Bird on a Wire, which you guys saw there. Bird on a Wire was also your first film screen credit.
He gave it. It was like it was like a gift. He just said, most people wait and wait for their first movie, and he gave it to me. That's how generous he was.
Jim Tyson has been a costume supervisor for over 40 years, correct? On
50
films,
now.
50 now?
50.
50. On films like Legends of the Fall and The Hunger Games, among other films. He was the vice president at Western Costume when Wayne was designing Overboard and another Wayne Finkelman film called Scrooged. Jim was also the costume supervisor on one of Wayne's most elaborate films, For the Boys, starring Bette Midler. Yes. So thank you both for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Did I get all of that right? Yeah? Okay. Thank you. I'm going to start with Jim, just because I feel like sometimes we have to give a brief explanation of what your job is. For people that aren't in the industry, I think some people don't know what a costume supervisor is and what they do. Can you share that with us?
Yeah. The costume supervisor is actually the administrator on the film for designers. We keep them on budget. We keep them focused on schedules. We get the actors in. We get all the kind of stuff, background counts, so they know what that is, and basically run the show administratively. And we also help them at times, point them and say, with creativity as well. And Wayne and I were friendly with that, and I appreciated him when I first saw his designs.
You guys have worked together a few times, and can you briefly explain that to me? Because was it through Wayne that the two of you met?
We knew each other way before Wayne. I think I did one of the first things that Jim called me and asked me to work the set on a show called Skag with Carl Malden, right? And I was a mess back then. I was very new. I was a party boy, and I was late and all that. And then when we connected on The Two Jakes, which was it was done twice.
The first iteration.
Jim and I worked on it, and Jim said, "Oh, you're plugged in now." I said, "Yeah, I'm plugged in." It was good, but Jim is an amazing supervisor, and we as designers cannot work without the brilliance of a great costume supervisor. And also, something about Jim he's very modest about. He has great taste. He introduced me. This was, I think, you may have been doing the Betsy. Did you work on the Betsy?
Correct.
With Laurence Olivier. I don't know how this. I was working as a kid, and I think he showed me what Barathea wool was, which I didn't know what it was. But he knows the business. He knows what it takes, and we're lucky to have him.
You were the vice president at Western for a hot minute, correct? What was the kind of period that you were the vice president at Western? Do you recall?
Yeah, in the 80s.
In the 80s?
Yeah, mid to late 80s, and
we see you in the film here in the workroom with Wayne. Can you explain to me, do you recall working on Overboard and kind of Wayne's approach to making those costumes?
Well, Wayne always kind of liked my opinion on stuff. Plus, there was always a financial matter in that, and I was the guy that, did the financial matters. And he actually, he'd say, he never called me, he called me Tyson. I said, it's Tyson. He said, just go with it, And I will tell a funny moment how we first met. And Ed was there that day. We were at Paramount Studios, and I was interviewing with Wayne. And he said, Jim, I need a very strong supervisor that helps me with the financials and stuff like this. And I said, I had the guts to ask Mae West for her autograph. And he said, hired. And this is years ago. Yeah. So we just had a bonding. And my training was at Disneyland. I built a lot of the supervised places and stuff like that. And Wayne respected, that I did a lot of the parades and the characters and the walkarounds. And I did the first electrical parade. So he knew that I would go first rate. And that's how we met. And Ed, too,
As someone who, both of you have worked with him, I feel like, for me, definitely, I got to know Wayne through the people that knew him, and including there's some other people here tonight that I've spoken with on the phone and in person. But that's how I got to know Wayne, was through the people that knew him. So I'm always curious to know who he was, what was he like, and I think that's important for everyone to know, because unfortunately he's no longer here. And if you can share that.
I'll tell you one story. Is I was called in to do a day check on a movie called Protocol. And I was only there for a couple of days, right? And I was there pulling shoes and just general grunt work. And I overheard that his assistant was pregnant and was going to leave the show. So Wayne sort of looked at me, at the corner of his eye, and I said to myself, I can do this. I can do this. I can be his assistant. I know I can. Because who they were looking at was a classmate of mine from Carnegie Mellon, Neil Spizak. They were going to fly him in from New York. Neil was my assistant in college. And so I went up to Wayne and said, I said, I can do this. I can be your assistant. He looked me up and down, very much in the same way Milena Canonero did when I met her. And he said, hold my hand and don't let go. And I assisted him on that, and then we got along. We understood each other. I was there to help make his job easy. And at the same time, he appreciated that I had that glimmer of talent that was about to evolve. So then we did a couple of, whenever he called me, I said, yeah, I'll go do Rustler's Rhapsody for you. I don't even think I got paid to do Rustler's Rhapsody. And then we did a couple of things. We did commercials, and then the two Jakes came along. And that's when this wonderful situation with Jim and Setsi and everything just came together. The whole project was a very beautiful project. It was a different cast than the first time, different director, but we never shot a frame. First day of shooting, we collapsed. And it was kind of heartbreaking to have 3 months' work just disappear. And then the film was revived a few years later. But Wayne was a person that, when you first met him, he was kind of scary. He had this look about him, and I go, oh my God. And it's like, I thought he was a terror, but he was a teddy bear. He was a teddy bear. And he was very, very generous. And I'm just going to take a side situation right now that's related, and that is 6 hours ago, I found out about May Routh. And May Routh, I also assisted when I was at Western, and both of them helped me so much in my career that I wouldn't have the career I had without both of them. They were both generous and wonderful to work with.
Jim, I wanted to ask you, I read an interview with screenwriter Leslie Dixon, who was the screenwriter of Overboard, and she said that the one-piece bathing suit thong that's in the film that Goldie's wearing was not originally in the script. It was only after Wayne created the costume that they wrote it into the movie. And I'm wondering on your end, how much do you think Wayne's designs influenced the direction of the film in different ways? I mean, I guess this is for both of you, but did you find that being in the workroom with him and sort of seeing him create those costumes, did you feel like that influenced the direction of the film and how things were photographed, if you will?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it also was, it was monumental because those costumes are so brilliantly done, and it gave Goldie the real opportunity to get a great performance, and the fact that every day Anthea Silbert was jumping up and down, happy, who was a costume designer as well as the producer on it. And I thought that all his designs were like that. He made you feel special when you were an actor. Ed knows that.
Yeah.
And things like that. He was just that kind of a designer. So yeah, I think it influenced that picture. I'd give it 50% at least. Mm-hmm. It helped the performance. If you look at the Oscars now, it's about what everybody wears to the Oscars. Nobody cares about the Oscars.
Well, what I love about the film is that clearly Gary Marshall loved the work that Wayne did, because it's rare in films that people are photographed from the waist down. And so many shots of just Goldie walking in and it's like the costume introduces her in a way. And I really love that he appreciated that. And it's interesting regarding the illustrations that you kind of saw here, and maybe you can both speak to this a little bit as well. It's almost like, did the illustration become before the costume, before it became in the film? Or what was because it's almost identical. It's almost identical how he drew it to how it's photographed in the film.
He was very a tremendous artist. And when we did the Two Jakes, we spent hours and hours and hours doing Jack Nicholson's clothes, and they were pretty much close to his illustrations. But getting back to something you said before, when we were doing Protocol, and Thea and Wayne flew to Morocco. They flew to Morocco to research what Goldie would wear when she's in the throes of the Emir. And what they found was that everybody was wearing Nikes and sweatshirts, and the classic robes weren't there. So when he got back from Morocco, he took me into the room with me and Antonio and Silvio Scarano, and said, "Eddie, you gotta help me do these." We built about 40 pieces that were all amazing. You saw some of them. They were the ones with the coins and the cheesecloth over it, and we did it in about a week and a half. But that's an instance where his designs made a difference in the story. So, but he was always drawing. You know, he was a brilliant illustrator.
It reminded me, because I'd spoken with someone else, another costume supervisor named Hope Sleepback.
Hope Sleepback, yeah.
And she's actually doing a film out of Western right now, and she's in Wayne's old office at Western, working out of that office, so it's very sort of emotional for her in many ways. But you had told me an anecdote about Wayne working in there when we spoke originally about Wayne working in his office at Western. Can you share it with me, the candle story?
Oh, yeah, at night, I would say, "Now, don't work, Chief, don't work too long." And he said, "I'll keep you posted and how I'll do it." And he would light a candle in the window, and that would, as I was driving home, I knew he was still there doing the thing. And I will comment on the Goldie Hawn thing. I spent a couple of days on the set with Gary Martin. I didn't know Marshall. I didn't know him that well, but every shot that Goldie appeared in, he couldn't stop laughing. They had to cut because Gary was laughing about how great she looked in the outfit. You could hear him go, "This is hilarious. This is great." So that is really a wonderful compliment to Wayne and everyone that worked on that. It was very special.
We have a brief Q&A tonight, so I just wanted one more question from you both. And as many of you know, it's June and the first day of Pride Month. One of the things that was important to me about putting this exhibit together was talking about how AIDS impacted the Hollywood community. And we lost so many during that time frame, including Wayne, who died in 1994. He clearly achieved so much in his career. I mean, it's shocking the amount that he did achieve, and maybe there was more of an urgency to his life once he was aware, perhaps. And I can't help to wonder what more he could have done. Eduardo, I wonder if you could share with me what you learned most from Wayne.
Well, he taught me a lot about fabrics and the richness of fabrics and the fact that, you spent a lot of money on fabrics. One thing I learned when we were doing Jack Nicholson's shoes on Two Jakes, and we had found Maurizio. Maurizio did the shoes. And Wayne taught me a lesson. He said, spend more money on the lining of the shoe than the leather. And he was full of lessons. He really was full of lessons. But at the same time, I almost felt like he learned from me certain things. I think we learn from each other. We always learn from each other. But one thing that struck me most about Wayne was his confidence when he knew how to make something. He knew how to execute it. There are a lot of designers today that, they can do a pretty drawing, but they have no idea how to execute it, or how much time it's going to take, or how much it's going to cost. You can do a Goldie dress for $20,000. You could do it for $2,000. You could do it for $200. It all depends on a lot of elements, but he knew all those elements, and he helped. I had an argument with him with Goldie Hawn on Bird on a Wire. This was 1989, I think, and I was furious that her skirt was costing $1,000, and I had fights with, was it Paul Abramowitz? I think Paul Abramowitz. I said, it's got 2 seams. How can it cost $1,000? That was back then, But he was he just knew the business so well. He just knew it. And also, I think he knew how to treat a star and not be afraid of them, you know. And he was never afraid of Jack Nicholson. He was never afraid of any of the people on the Two Jakes. And he taught me a lot as how to communicate with actors in the workroom and everybody. Yeah.
Thank you. Jim, you've worked with many costume designers over the years. I'm wondering what made Wayne stand out to you.
His creativity. I think Ed hit it on the head with his exquisiteness and fabrics, and actually supervising the cutting and everything of that from head to toe. And also, one a lot of people don't realize, he was an accomplished hair and makeup person. He would take an extra, an actress in, and 20 minutes later they'd come out. Ed and I would look at each other and, well, let's shoot it here. Yes. You know, I mean, he was that good at that. He had that tremendous talent. And like I said, he was a designer. Let's go for the gold, not the bronze. And that's what I liked about him. He was so great.
Thank you both so much for being here and contributing to this and just sharing all of your thoughts and memories with me and everyone else here. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heath, and thank you, panelists, for being here tonight. We're gonna take a short break, and then we'll come back in about 5-10 minutes, and we'll get to see his costumes in action in Overboard. We've got a beautiful Blu-ray that we're going to project for you, so I hope you'll stay around for the movie. You can also take photos in front of the Overboard railing, and tweet and post and share, because we want to get the word out about Wayne Finkelman so that we can do a larger exhibit that encompasses all of his work. And we need your help. So let's get the buzz going, everybody. All right, we'll take a break. Thank you so much.